You know what? No, we're gonna give a Terran build order. So Terran versus Zerg hasn't changed much in the new update. It's still, the basics still apply. A 1-Rax expand can still work out, and that's kind of your choice to go for a bio with a lot of barracks or mech. I actually prefer going mech. Mixes it up a little bit. There's been years of StarCraft 2 going bio, especially below the top level. It's pretty easy to go either. But, of course, mech requires a little bit more attention to the build, a little bit more attention to what units you're building early on, because you just don't have a bunch of Marines and medevacs to make up for everything. So a little bit more finesse-oriented early, so maybe you can A-move harder later. Alright. Up against Zerg. He was so kind as to attempt to kill me. We're gonna try to do the same. If the game loads. Alright. Now, I'm going to be going for a 1-Rax expand. A 1-Rax expand is supply depot, barracks, gas, and then after you build an orbital command. Now, the first thing of any Terran build order that you need to understand is you build a barracks, and then immediately you build an orbital. Yeah, for those who know, it sounds obvious. For those who don't, you build an orbital, and that orbital will drop a mule, and a mule will mine you monies. If you want to have more money, as opposed to less money, you get an orbital. It's not, very soon you get an orbital. It's not, I'll get an orbital eventually, when I finish my homework. It's, you get an orbital, right off the bat. It's worth so much, it's so good. Alright, going to get a barracks here. I'm going to rally out this SCV, the 16th SCV, 17th, 1 minute mark, whatever. Go to scout, see if he's doing anything cheesy. And by that, that would mean, in his case, as a Zerg player, he already has a spawning pool and he's not going for an expansion. Alright. We're gonna get into the gas here. I don't need a second gas early. That will slow me down. But I want to make sure to get it as soon as I can while still building SCVs after the barracks. You should be able to go to 19 SCVs, and then right after the 19th SCV finishes, your barracks finishes. And you can go ahead on with your life. Alright. I'm going to go for a reactor first. This will allow me to make some Marines. Yeah, we're going for mech. But having those Marines will keep me from being dead, which is a pretty important part of StarCraft. Okay. It looks like he has a pool already done when I got there. So what I'm going to do is build my command center on the high ground because Terran buildings can fly. He does have an expansion on the way, so he's not going all in. But he did have the spawning pool done, which means he can have Zerglings. I don't need a bunker. I don't need anything like that. I don't need to worry about a big attack. But I just want to make sure he doesn't delay my important command center. Gonna build the factory over here, and eventually I'm gonna do a little bit of ring around the add-ons and get it onto the reactor. Now, after this, after starting the factory and having some money here, usually 23, 24, 25 supply. This I was a little bit late on it. Getting a second gas geyser so I can afford more high-tech units, which mech is full. Alright, gonna take 2 SCVs there, bring them into gas. Drop down a mule. Now, I could maybe have gone for a scan, and I actually will scan him as I build this orbital right off the bat. If you build on the high ground, it's usually better to just build the orbital on that high ground rather than to go for fly it all the way down, because it gains energy. It gains more time. Okay. I'm also going to get a tech lab here. Thank you for that. and just keep building Hellions. We'll bring this down. And this is gonna build Banshees. Now, I don't need to worry about microing the Banshees, but the Banshees, they're not for offense, they're for defense. Because there's nothing Zerg can do super early that can kill Banshees. So if he does a big Roach attack or Zerglings and Banelings, well, then the Banshees can save me. Now I got supply blocked pretty hard here. Instead of just building these depots, I'm going to drop down a supply depot. That's okay, especially if you're supply blocked, that's fine to do. I'm going to scan the main. We see he's got a Roach Horn on the way. And I'm going to move out with these Hellions here. Keep making Hellions for a while. But now is the time to maybe add on some more factories. As you start to get settled on 2 bases, maybe 40, 50 supply, closer to 50, that's when you want to add some more factories. Let's see, does he have anything? Now, some players... Now, I don't want to get baited here. So some players will have nothing, but some players won't, and he's hiding it. I don't want to get too bogged down trying to micro those Hellions. I might see an opportunity to win the game, but half the time that's going to hurt you more than them, because you're going to be so focused on that you're not going to be doing anything back home. So now, we're at 38, 39 SCVs. I can be getting more gas. I want to be looking towards another command center. I'm going to bring these Hellions up here. If he doesn't have defenses, I will use the Cloak Banshee, but once again, no more than 5 seconds at a time do I really want to be looking at this. I'm going to use the Cloak. I'm going to send it into the mineral line. We're going to see he has no detection. And then I'm just going to press hold position so it doesn't get crazy. Now we're looking back at home. This is the most important part of Terran, is looking away from the units that are doing a lot of damage. A lot of players, you can win a game with 1 Banshee. You can. You can win a game with 4 Hellions. But as you get better and better, players won't die to 1 Banshee or 4 Hellions. And then if you don't have things behind like siege tanks, they're going to counterattack and kill you. Getting supply blocked here. So I've got these factories up. Building more depots near the edge. Got an armory on the way. I lost a Banshee. End of the world. Not really at all. Another Banshee in the main. We're going to use the Cloak. He does not have a lair. Now, if I want to be if I get faster at this, shift right-click onto the drones, so I can target them down individually, and then I can go back home. Though ideally, before you get to 100 supply, you're working on 5 factories. Now, you shouldn't be too worried about that. It's easy to mess up that micro. We see the Spore Crawlers finishing. We're just going to go towards the front. Now, the things I'm looking for, well, I'm getting all my infrastructure up. I'm going to get my 3rd base established. And then we're going to see, can we move out? Some big upgrades besides the basic upgrades, like armory upgrades, are Blue Flame and Smart Servos. Smart Servos is an upgrade you should be getting by about 110, 120 supply. It allows your Hellions, Hellbats, Vikings, and Thors to transform a lot quicker. Not your siege tanks, but pretty much everything else. And that's really helpful when it comes to maybe you're a little bit out of position or anything like that. Let's see if he has a 3rd. If he has a 3rd, I want to attack. He doesn't have a 3rd, but let's scan. Now, by this point, if I'm ahead, and I'm ahead, obviously. I've killed a lot of drones. He has less bases. I want to make sure I build a couple Thors and have a couple turrets, because the biggest vulnerability to Mech is a big Muta switch at this point. Because my units kill roaches real good. Siege tanks, Thors, Hellbats in front. That's really nice. Now, the big thing with Ravens, by the way, is the repair drone. It's essentially a medevac for Mech. It creates a drone that repairs your Mech. Simple enough. And it's really good. It heals at the same rate as a medevac does. So essentially, you put down those repair drones, and you have mechavex. And that's a pretty big buff to mech in the new update. Alright. We scan. I don't need to siege up these tanks. I'm making sure at home I'm getting my upgrades if I can. I'm getting my idle SCVs to work, which I should have done before the attack started. We're going to get the repair drones up there. You can save up energy and have multiple, and you see it healing. Maybe siege up these tanks. But at this point, can just kind of rally forward. Pretty sloppy to lose that, but... I actually forgot my smart servos. That's something I do sometimes. A counterattack comes in, but I have the reinforcements on the way. There is a Spire. He did go for that, but Thors don't really care about you silly Zerglings. The thing about mech, I attacked because I had gotten so far ahead. The big timings you want to attack with mech are when they're trying to take another base or tech up, or you reach a critical mass. Like, I was finishing +1 attack, I was taking a third, and I had about 5 siege tanks. So I'm looking to see, do I have an opportunity to attack? Mech is not all about just sitting back home and defending. If he's taking a 4th base, and I have 3 bases, then that's a timing to attack, because he's put himself out there, he's in a more vulnerable position. So when your opponent is expanding, or when you're getting a strong army and have your production up, are the timings you want to attack. Usually the timings are around 110 to 140 supply, or when they're taking a 4th base. Now, you should be taking a 3rd base, and they should have a 3rd base, but if they're taking a 4th base, or if you scan and they're going to Hive, or they're getting a Spire or something like that, then maybe you're looking for a timing. But always be careful. With mech, you can be more vulnerable in a lot of ways, but also stronger. The strength of mech is just a powerful army that if you put it in the right spot, is almost unbeatable. But it's more vulnerable to counterattacks and to tech switches and stuff like that, so you got to keep those in the back of your mind. Yeah, less APM than a Zerg player, but I think that was a pretty convincing victory there. Of course, obviously he's not my level, but hopefully that helps out. Alright, you got a replay to look at.